It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something to play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Hello there and good morning. It is Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We're set to talk Michigan sports for the next hour. We're going to have some fun doing that. Talking Tigers, Pistons, and a little bit of March Madness, and we'll make our picks at the end as we always do. And let's get into it with Tigers here in just a little bit. First, DJ, how's it going, man?
I am doing great. I feel well rested and had a good time to really just relax this past week and get my thoughts and things together for the gauntlet of a lacrosse season I have coming up as spring break ends on Sunday. My favorite lacrosse team in the indoor league is in the thick of a playoff battle with like 4, 5, 6 teams. Like literally, when I tell you this league, like the top 2 seeds they're figured out.
Right.
Seeds 3 through 12 are open. Open, like wide open. Like to the point to where like the team that's in 12th place right now could end the season and host a playoff game.
Right.
Like it's insanity right now. So I'm head deep into that. And Michigan lacrosse is 2-0 on the year. So 2-0 in Big Ten play, excuse me. They have taken down both Maryland and Johns Hopkins in back-to-back weeks. They have, I believe, Rutgers coming up this week, and then they will take on Penn State next, and then, Penn State's this week, Rutgers is following, and then they have Ohio State to end out the regular season. So definitely looking forward to that as well. And one more shout out, because we never talk about them. The Western Michigan Broncos are going to be playing in the Frozen Four next week. Yeah. So we will be diving into that next week, talking about those possible matchups and things moving forward. But great job to the Broncos. And as someone who's grown up as a Lawson lunatic and knows what it's like to be inside Lawson, this is an exciting feeling to see them back in the Frozen Four, a chance at their first national championship ever.
For sure. I mean, it's not the Frozen Four if a Michigan program isn't representing.
I agree.
It is just the way that it is. I'm still recovering. I'm exhausted from the move last week. I at least have a shorter drive to work though. Big shout out to Third Coast Move for getting us over there. Devin and Levi did a fantastic job taking care of our stuff. If you want to check out Third Coast Move for your small moving services or senior moving services, give them a call or find them online, thirdcoastmove.com. But yeah, settling into the new place, having all the internet issues that you could possibly imagine. I had to drive all the way to Jackson for a temporary internet solution, which, as you're listening by now, I have already had to come up with a permanent solution within the 24 hours between us recording and this show airing. But we got it all figured out, continue to have fun and continue to talk Michigan sports here on Mitten Madness. Let's dive into it with the Detroit Tigers. Since last we talked, they are 2-4, and so is most of the AL Central, except for the Minnesota Twins, who are 2-5. So they're actually in the basement of what is a complete and total basement in the AL Central. But I don't think it's because all the teams are bad, and certainly they are not, especially the Detroit Tigers themselves, who, let's be honest, by the end of the weekend could find themselves in first place in the AL Central with their home series debut against the Chicago White Sox. That got started yesterday afternoon. We are going to pick the remainder of the series later in the show, but anticipate strong performance from Detroit back at home after starting the season with 6 games on the road, including an opening series against the best team in baseball. And I think most Tigers fans, DJ, came away feeling pretty good about this team because a 5-4 loss on opening night, 8-5 loss in game 2, and a 7-3 loss is a little bit more disappointing. But all of those performances kind of showed you that the Detroit Tigers can hang, and that with some growth throughout this 182 game season, they're surely going to figure some things out to be even more competitive once the postseason rolls around. This is a high expectations type of year for the Detroit Tigers. Maybe not like, World Series expectations like LA's got, but an expectation to grow upon what we saw from the team last year. And I think we got that in the first 6 games out there on the West Coast.
Definitely. If you ask me, I think the bigger thing we have to look at is how does this team compare to what we got from the Detroit Tigers last year? If you ask me, this team is already better. But granted, it is a long season ahead of us. So not speaking for the entire season on if they are better, but if we look at a 6-game sample at pretty much any point last year outside of the end of the year where they made that push to get into the playoffs, we look at anything outside of that, this 6-game stretch is the best 6-game stretch we'll see for batting. That's really what I want to look at is the bats have been going to start this season. We know what we're getting with pitching. Like the bullpen, the mound, like that is taken care of. We know what is going to happen with who steps on the mound, and we should know what to expect from them in terms of throwing strikes in comparison to balls and keeping runs off the board. We know who's going to be good at that and who isn't. The big question mark this year was fielding and batting. More so importantly, batting. Because we saw last year they could not keep the bats going for a consistent amount of time until the end of the season when they had to fight and claw their way into the playoffs. So to start the year, first game of the year, 4 runs on the Dodgers. Next game, 5 runs. Then you end it with 3. You scored 12 runs in 3 games. There wasn't too many times last year where you scored 12 runs in 3 games. That's improvement already. And then you come back from that. 2 wins in a row, 9-6, 4-1. Then you lose 1, 3-2. Quick math here. That's another 15. You've already scored 27 runs in 6 games. I don't know if we can go back last year and find any stretch outside of maybe the end of the year where they scored 27 runs or more in 6 games. That is huge for this team because you know what kind of pitching you have coming behind that.
Right.
And as long as you get guys not named a certain name that I won't just blast out right now. He has been switched over from shortstop to now center field. As long as he's doing his job out there and he's not in a regular rotation because center field, like the outfielders rotate a little bit differently than what you see in the infield. You have a chance at some true success here, even with guys that are not quote unquote marquee household names. You can put together a great squad if the bats will continue to go. And we've seen that the bats are more than going to start the year.
Yeah, I think it's best if most Detroit Tigers fans pull their focus away from the man that you were mentioning, and I will say his name, Javi Baez. Pull your attention away from him on offense and instead look at Spencer Torkelson and just drool because dude is playing absolutely fantastic baseball. Hitting 318. Dude's fantastic. Now, the issue is you can only rely on Spencer Torkelson so many times a game. And the fact is that injuries have already kind of started to pile up with Parker Meadows out and definitely with a nerve issue, Matt Vierling on the injured list because of a rotator cuff injury, and Gleyber Torres, who, is supposed to be a big addition to this squad this year. He's out because of an oblique problem. So scoring might be a little bit lower here in the coming, weeks or so when it comes to, the White Sox opening series here at home. You want to light up the scoreboard against Chicago, but you got to do what you got to do, and you got to work with what you got. But that being said, I think as long as you've got the fact of the matter is that Detroit kind of has an ace on offense and on defense. When you look at what Tariq Screwball does on the mound and what Torkelson brings at the plate, that can carry you a long way. Just having guys that you can rely on, that when they're out there, they're going to be a difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, Torkelson is going to be a huge difference maker. So is Carpenter. We've already seen those two come back and pretty much bounce right into the form that they were in last year before they bowed out of this team and got hurt. Riley Green has come back and helped this team out as well. So we're seeing that the young guys are back. They're excited, and they're and they talked at the end of last year how it could be just a little bit better if those guys didn't get hurt. If they had those guys in the playoffs, maybe they do win that game 5. We don't know. We're seeing that those guys do make a difference, and it's happening right in front of us. I'm really excited for the season that those guys can have if we're able to keep them healthy for a long period of time.
Let's look ahead to Tuesday. Tuesday is an interesting night for the Detroit Tigers. They will be in Game 2 against the New York Yankees, who of course are in headlines because their bats are quite literally on fire. You were talking about the impressive stats that Detroit has been putting up in losses. Well, the Yankees are putting up even more impressive numbers in wins. Scooball is going to start Game 2 of that 3-game series on Tuesday night, April 8th. Tickets are as low as $6. I don't know. I might drive out to Detroit for that little late birthday gift or something. Today's my birthday, in case you didn't recognize. Here on the air, not today as we're recording, so don't feel like you feel weird, DJ. But Scooball versus the Yankees and those new bats. How are you feeling about that matchup?
Absolutely. Those bats are insane. I can't believe that they're not like against the rules.
Do you see somebody like put a meme and they put like a RPG cannon or whatever?
That's pretty much what it is.
That's what they look like.
That is pretty much what it is. So I'm interested to see kind of just that battle. Like I think it's going to be something new for this pitching crew, and they're just going to have to work through it just like everybody else is. Just the real question is, where are the Tigers torpedo bats? They better had ordered them already.
They're on back order.
Facts. They're definitely on back order.
I hope they didn't come from overseas.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't have, considering the homie probably grew up a Tigers fan, possibly. He went to University of Michigan. He also taught there physics that created the bat.
That's right. You wrote a story about that. What
you
the
can
hell
find on
don't Detroit
WBCK
have these bats first instead of the Yankees?
He was working for the Yankees at the time, so I get it. But nonetheless, you get the point.
We got next. All right, we'll break there. We come back. We're going to talk March Madness. Final Four is ready to go. Who's going to win it all? We'll talk about it next here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We're talking March Madness, the namesake of the show, and we're down to the Final Four. All 1 seeds for just the second time in NCAA tournament history. First since 2008. We've got a SEC matchup on one side, Auburn and Florida later tonight, and then immediately following that, it's Duke and Houston. By the end of Saturday night, we are going to know who is going to be playing in the national championship for the rights to cut down those nets and go down in college basketball history. All 4 of these schools, all 4 of these programs, certainly deserving of the opportunity. I think we're in store for some really, really good basketball tonight. Florida's a 2.5-point favorite over Auburn. Duke is a 5.5-point favorite over Houston. All these teams play great defense. All these teams have great superstars. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into too much, and we can only do so much with talking about the games because we're going to be picking them later. DJ, how have your brackets gone? Did you get the Final Four correct, or were you one of those people that said this is just not going to happen? There's no way all 4 number 1s are going to make it.
I was 75% correct.
So you were one of those people.
No. I wasn't one of those people that couldn't believe. I just want to put that out there. Like I wholeheartedly believed, because Florida was in my Elite 8.
Yeah.
So I wholeheartedly believed that they could have gotten there. I was one of those weirdos that was sipping on the Rick Pitino Kool-Aid at St. John's.
Oh.
So I had St. John's going to the Final Four.
So you got in trouble
Florida.
a long time ago.
I got in trouble a long time ago. My Elite 8 is where things went bad.
Oh, okay.
I had pretty good things up until St. John and Wisconsin lost their Sweet 16 games. That is what cost me. They win those games and they make it to the Elite 8. I'm looking real good.
Yeah.
Even if St. John's loses, because I didn't have Florida or St. John's winning my national championship anyway.
Right.
So that wouldn't have mattered too much. But my champion and my semifinal team are both still up and alive. So I don't think I've done too bad. I think the one group that I did an ESPN bracket in, I think that I checked not too long ago. If Duke wins, I win.
Nice.
That simple. It's literally that simple. There's no other way to cut it. If Duke wins, I win.
That's the way you want it to be.
But personally, I would like for Auburn to win their half so that I also get the points for them being my semifinalists.
Yep.
Or not semifinalists, my runner-up. But if they don't, it's okay. Duke just has to win because no one above me has Duke as the national champion. So by default, if Duke wins, I win.
Yeah, I was looking at the corporate bracket challenge that we do here at work, and that's the only bracket I filled out this year. And I have been perfect since the Elite Eight. My struggles came in round one, where I made some boat-ended decisions, but Elite Eight on, I've been perfect. And, you know, I'm confident in my choices here in the Final Four as well. But all that being said, I can't win the whole thing because of my mistakes in the first round, because there are a couple of teams who would either finish with more points than me, regardless of who's the national champion, or because if things went the way I chose, the national champion would be the same as what I chose. To be a little bit more vague as we get into things. But that said, I mean, shaking up to be a fantastic Final Four series tonight with these teams. Is there anything that, obviously the favorites are who they are. I think even with Florida being a 2.5 point favorite, I think still a lot of people are looking at Auburn as a team who has been kind of destined to make it this far to this point. And everybody in the state of Michigan probably hates Auburn about as much as I do after how Auburn ended the seasons for both Michigan and Michigan State in the manner of a few days. When it comes to that Auburn squad, are they dangerous enough to survive Florida, who has beat up on all of the elite teams in the SEC, including Auburn? Or, I mean, are they dangerous enough to survive Florida and then also have the skill to go on and take on a team like Duke or Houston and try to win this whole thing?
They're more than dangerous enough to do it. So I just want to say, first off, I'm not upset. I'm not upset.
No, I think all Michigan fans should be very happy with the Sweet 16.
We should be extremely happy with what we got this year. We went from bottom of the Big Ten to almost to third, and then we went and won the Big Ten championship, get a decent seed. We won a couple games, make it to the Sweet 16. And honestly, if it wasn't for something I don't really do, the referees, Michigan might have won that game against Auburn. They were up 9. Now, it wasn't just the referees, but we all know how a few calls here and there can tip momentum and help. Obviously, all you need is a little bit of momentum to take off, especially against a team like Michigan who turns the ball over and doesn't make free throws, which they did in this game against Auburn. So it's not all on the referees, but you look at some of those calls and when they were made and how it helped Auburn get back in that game. Michigan was up 9 with under 10 minutes to go. They very easily could have won that game, and we're talking a totally different story. So I think the Michigan season was absolutely phenomenal. Same thing for Michigan State. You were right back where you're supposed to be, the Elite Eight. You were this close to the Final Four. So there's tons of chances for these two teams to be extremely happy. Obviously, both of them are losing players in the transfer portal, which is expected. Both of them are losing players to the NBA draft, which is expected. But we are expecting these teams to reload in both the transfer portal and through recruiting out of high school, and expect them to be right back where they were, which goes back to Auburn. Auburn is fantastic. They have a top-seeded or a top-ranked prospect that is most likely going to be a lottery draft pick in the NBA in Janai Broome, who has been AP Player of the Year. He was named AP Player of the Year this year, and he's played every bit like it in the tournament. Came back from an injury against that game in that game against Michigan State, and still put up 25 and 15. The dude is a beast, and the tough part is he can shoot. The other tough part is he can dribble. The other tough part is he's a good defender. He can also rebound. The man has a complete game. And then you look at who they have surrounding him with a guy like Chad Baker-Mazara, who does have his moments with his emotions and his attitude and the effort that he puts into the game. But you can't deny it either. It might get you a foul or a tech here and there. It might have a little animation, but the guy plays hard. The guy can go get you a bucket. The guy can get you a stop when he needs it. And then you look at all the other complementary pieces they have around those two. it's tough to say that they're not a complete team that doesn't deserve a national championship. I think they beat Florida, and I think they are the best chance we have at seeing someone truly compete and beat Duke at this moment in the season.
I mean, that was kind of where I was going next. I mean, when it comes to Duke, is there a chink in the armor of these Blue Devils? Because, man, look, I have not watched a lot of basketball this year. I'll be quite honest. But when it comes to Duke and Alabama and the way that game unfolded, I did not expect my Crimson Tide to win. But I damn sure didn't expect them to lose by 20. I mean, Bama got shut out in the second half, effectively. I mean, not literally, but effectively shut out in the second half. And Alabama was a team that was coming off of a record-setting performance against an overachieving BYU squad. So, I mean, Bama came in with momentum. Bama came in with the studs of a legitimate 2 seed to take on Duke, and they got waxed. I mean, is there any chink in the armor to the Duke Blue Devils for either Houston or the winner of that SEC matchup on the other side of the bracket?
Yes. There is one weakness.
Yeah, glue Cooper Flag to the bench.
No, that's not even their weakness because they can play without Coop on the floor.
True.
We've seen it, the rest of that ACC tournament, which was a big thing for me. I was like, what is this team like without Coop?
Yeah.
Coop goes down with a minor ankle injury, and they're like, hey, we're going to sit you the rest of the ACC tournament so we can have you for the NCAA tournament. They go out, and they still win the ACC tournament in convincing fashion. There was no question that they were the best team in the ACC with or without Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about that point. The one thing that Duke has to worry about is something that they were able to limit for Alabama, which was a concern for Duke coming into that game, is perimeter shooting. Duke is a streaky perimeter shooting team. If they have a bad shooting game, it could be a long night for them. That's only if the other team across from them is also hitting a ton of threes. If they're limiting Duke's threes but hitting a ton, that makes that game very close. But I don't know if any teams left outside of Florida have the 3-point shooting ability that Alabama had.
I mean, few teams in all college basketball have what Alabama has, and it got shut down.
That's my point. So the one weakness is hoping that they have a bad shooting game and you have a good one. That's a terrible weakness to run into.
I tell you, I mean, it's not as though Houston is like not this, but Houston is a big, beefy, inside kind of team. Always has been since they joined the Big 12. They're not the perimeter shooting team that's going to topple Duke in that manner. Now, is there any credence to the idea that Houston could wear out Duke so much and control the game? I mean, that would be a very tall task, but I mean, size and defense is how Houston has gotten the job done for years.
Duke's got the same thing on the other side.
Exactly.
They have multiple 7-footers and 6'11" guys, 6'9" guys. Like, they have just as much size as everybody else in the country as well. And then the tough part about that size is skilled, that size runs, that size is athletic. It's not just big brute strength. It's full-on basketball players that are at that size, which makes it so hard to keep up with Duke. Is you're not only worried about Con Knueppel and Cooper Flag, who are 1 and 2 on this team, but you got to be worried about 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 because all of them can go. And there's not too many teams in the country like that.
No.
Auburn is one of those teams where like 1 through 7 can go. And then I think Houston is also one of those teams where 1 through 7 can go. I think Florida's more of a 1 through 4 for sure. Your 5 through 7 are a little more questionable. But honestly, these are the 4 best teams in the country, and we're going to find out who's the best pretty soon.
I mean, this is the cool thing about tournaments and playoffs and whatnot is every once in a while, the 1 seeds do come through. And you get to say what you just said. These are the 4 best teams in college basketball, and we get to find out which one of them is the best. A lot of chaos can happen in tournaments and playoffs and whatnot, and it always throws me back to the college football excuses that I hear, people who don't like the playoff system. This is why you like playoff systems, because either you get a Cinderella story like you get in college basketball so often, or you get to see the best of the best duke it out and see who's going to come out on top. Looks like Duke is going to be the big dog on campus to beat. They've been here, done that a gazillion times, and they've got the skill and athleticism. So we'll see how things turn out later tonight. Auburn, Florida tips off 6:09 p.m. on CBS. We will pick these games later in the show in case you haven't figured out exactly who we think is going to win already. But we'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll check in on the Pistons, who have just a handful of games left in the regular season and a playoff spot in the palm of their hand. We'll talk about it next. Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK app.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. Let's talk Detroit Pistons, 42-34. That's good for 6th place in the East, tied with the Milwaukee Bucks. We're both 19 games back from first place, both 42-34. And both 3 games back from the Indiana Pacers, who currently have that 4th seed all but locked up. Just a handful of games left in the NBA regular season, especially for Detroit, who legitimately has 5 games left. Memphis, Sacramento, New York, the Knicks to be specific, and Milwaukee on back-to-back games. Those Milwaukee home and away games to close the regular season could determine who is the 5 and who is the 6. Of course, how Indiana plays down the stretch will also determine some of that as well, with them being just 3 games ahead. Pistons don't really have a lot to worry about with that 6th seed. Orlando is 5 games back from Detroit. Detroit would legitimately have to lose out, including last night's game, which we don't know the outcome of. And Orlando would have to win out for that to be a possibility. And that just doesn't seem very likely. So Detroit, most likely the 6th seed, could be the 5th with a solid run down the stretch here. DJ, regardless, what are you looking for out of the Pistons over these next 5 games as they head back to the playoffs for almost like a 99.9% certainty?
Oh no, they're going back to the playoffs.
Yeah.
No question there. They're 100% locked in. They're not losing out, which means they're locked in.
Right.
But what I want to see here is when the games you're supposed to win, maybe you steal one from New York, and then you got to go in and have a playoff like mindset for the April 11th and 13th.
Yeah.
I just want to see the mindset. Even if you lose those games, cool. But I want to see that this is the only game we have. If we lose this, our season's done. Like, I need that mindset to know that you're transitioning to playoff type ball, because playoff type ball is here. It's here. It's April, which means you got to be ready for playoffs. Playoffs start the end of April, and then they roll into May, and then if you're lucky enough, you're playing in June. I don't think this Pistons team is lucky enough to be playing in June, but I do think they're good enough to be playing at the end of April and into May, which means you got to flip the switch. I want to see that flip switch for the Milwaukee series at the end of the year. You play them at home on Friday, the 11th. It would be great to win that one at home, and then you really get to kind of experience a playoff-like atmosphere for the last game of the year on the road, because playoff seeding will matter. So I believe that teams won't necessarily be sitting players unless Friday is the game that turns out to be the case, and then you still have that playoff-like mentality from both squads coming in on that Friday. So I just want to see that full effort, 150%. This may be the last game of the year for me, so I got to make it count kind of game from the Pistons. And also, I just want to know what kind of situation we have going on with Cade Cunningham. I think that they're being a little vague, which I understand, but we need to know more. Are we in a position where we're not getting the homie back for the rest of the season, or are we in a position where you're resting him so that he can be good for the playoffs? We just need to know just a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not super crazy about resting if that's the situation. Obviously, you don't want to be in a situation where you don't know what's going on with your star player either, though. I will say, though, just looking at the last 5 games here, I think there's there's a real opportunity for the Pistons to take advantage of a unique situation that they find themselves in, where they're kind of being lined up here. And what I mean by that is tonight they play the Memphis Grizzlies, a team with a similar record who is also the 6th seed in their conference on the other side of this bracket, right? Then Monday night, they're going to take on Sacramento, a team that they have a better record than, that they know that they're better than. At home, all you got to do is take care of business. Then New York, a big test ahead of the playoffs, a team that you know is better than you in some capacities, but you also know that you can hang with, and a solid test ahead of that Milwaukee series. Then Milwaukee basically is the playoffs, just like you said, without necessarily the pressure of don't win, go home. But you get that home feeling and then that away feeling over the span of 2 days. That's a lot like how the NBA playoffs operate, except you're playing one of these games at 1 p.m., which is not NBA playoff style. But nonetheless, I think there's a lot that the Detroit Pistons can learn about themselves over the course of the next 8 days. And in that process, I think they can come to some conclusions about how to attack this playoff run that they're going to try to go on here and see what's going to come out of it. Now, obviously, you need Cade Cunningham full strength. You need him as a full go. So whether or not you're resting him, it's kind of whatever. But once the playoffs get started, you need everybody ready to go. You need everybody firing on all cylinders. Otherwise, you're going to squander an opportunity. I don't think Detroit's going to squander this opportunity. I'm not so sure if they win their first series back in the playoffs after so long. But I think that they're going to be competitive no matter what they do. And I think these next 5 games to close out the regular season are going to be a testament to that. This is a tough team. I mean, this is a team that got into, Malice at the Palace Part 2 just about a week or so ago. They're ready to go, and I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to pull off here in the postseason.
I literally was just saying on Twitter, maybe 4 weeks ago, that the NBA is a better place when the Pistons are crashing out. And it's just facts. You look at the best eras of the NBA and the Pistons have had certified crash outs on their team. So we are reaching some of the best moments of the NBA. Soak this stuff up and enjoy it. The Pistons are back, and it is exciting to see them in this mode. This next couple of, this next 2 weeks as they prep for the playoffs is going to be exciting. And then the party when they get in, let me know where it's at. Is we at the Pantheon? Because I'll be there. It don't matter to me. Are we downtown on Woodward Ave? I'm there. Just let me know. I'm ready to party. I hope you are ready to party, because this Pistons season has been phenomenal and really can only be stamped with better. Even if they go and get swept, homie, they just made the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. I don't care what happens.
Go full Philly at that point.
Exactly.
But to your point, I mean, if the NBA is better when the team is full of crash outs, that's only the case when the team is full of crash outs and they're winning, right? So if they're able to
even when them Bulls was beating them Pistons,
true, okay.
It was a good time.
Well, I mean, at least being successful, I guess.
Yeah,
but making the playoffs and carrying that grit into the postseason, it adds a layer that sometimes might not exist. But for all of that to come together, it means they've got to have a squad, right? Like it's a legitimate team. These are dudes that care about each other. And these are dudes that are willing to go to war for each other. And that's stuff that gets said more in football than basketball. But when you're in a situation like they're in now, when you've got so many guys that you can rely on, whether it's Isaiah Stewart or Tobias Harris or Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley, Jalen Durant, last year and the year before, it was okay, well, what's Cade doing? Oh, Cade's hurt. Well, you know what I mean? There wasn't a whole lot to lean on. Now there's a lot to lean on for Detroit, and that's why they're so exciting. Sure, the attitude is there, and you want to see that out of Detroit basketball. The success is there, but when it all comes together and you've got a cohesive team that works well together and that cares about each other, that's when you see real success. And I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing under JB Bickerstaff in year one with the Detroit franchise. All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, it is time for us to make our picks for this weekend. We'll do that next here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
here on Mitten Madness 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We're set to make our picks for the weekend, and all games that happen from Saturday to next Friday, right? That's what we're going to pick. Best of the best. That does leave out a few that we wanted to pick. We wanted to pick the Stallions-Panthers game. Just couldn't do it, man. Not the way the calendar fell. But we will pick a UFL game from this week, a couple of Pistons games, Final Four, and Detroit's home opening series against the Chicago White Sox. We'll do all that here in just a minute after DJ updates us on the standings for the picks so far.
Yes. Last week we both went 5-1 as we had the same picks down the board. It was Notre Dame and women's that cost us that 1L. You're sitting at 28-14. I'm at 26-16. You still hold that 2-game lead for now.
I like having twice the wins as my losses. That feels a lot better than just being 3 or 4 games above 500. That's for sure.
Yes, it does.
All right, let's dive right into this. I'm going to get us started out in the UFL because this might be one of the more uncompetitive games of the games that we are picking. The St. Louis Battlehawks are set to host the San Antonio Brahmas in the UFL. In case you didn't know, the UFL got started last week. Brilliant decision to get started in the middle of the Elite Eight and opening week of baseball, but it is what it is. The Michigan Panthers are 1-0. As far as we know, they played the Birmingham Stallions, who surprisingly lost their first game of the season. But that game happened last night. We're talking Battlehawks, Brahmas. St. Louis, is a 7.5 point favorite. Almost every game in week 1 was a blowout, DJ. Can St. Louis pull it out again?
Yeah, and I think St. Louis wins in another blowout. I think they have one of the best offenses in the UFL, and I think that they have done a great job of kind of establishing themselves as a blockbuster, franchise. When you look back at their time in the XFL or the USFL, whichever one they were in, they were dominant in that league before the two leagues came together. They were great last year in the UFL. And I think they're just reminding everyone that St. Louis is, in fact, a football city. When the Rams left, they were upset about it, and they want a football team back. They're getting one with the Battlehawks. The fans are showing up, giving them somewhat of a home field advantage, and they're taking advantage of the atmosphere inside St. Louis, and they're running with it, creating a very good football team. Battlehawks for the dub.
Yeah, the Battlehawks are kind of like my team of the UFL. I've been following them since the XFL when A.J. McCarron was their quarterback and all that. But yeah, they've been a stalwart, one of the better run franchises in these small spring leagues. But they were, the one of two teams alongside the Renegades to put up 30+ points. The Brahmas last week lost 9-33 to the Renegades. So I'm going to stick with the Battlehawks. Doesn't matter who's at quarterback. They got a 2-quarterback system in St. Louis, and it doesn't matter. That's how good they are.
I'm going to switch us over to the baseball diamond. The Tigers are taking on the dreaded Chicago White Sox, the worst team in baseball last year. They started the year 2-4, just like the Tigers have. But as we know, the Tigers had a much tougher start to their year. So their 2-4 looks very different than the White Sox 2-4. This series did start yesterday with Cannon on the mound for the White Sox and Flaherty on the mound for the Tigers. I'm hoping for a Tigers win there. I might have just tipped my pick, but who cares? Martin is going on the mound for the White Sox tonight, in just a few moments at 1:10 p.m. Olsen will be on the mound for the Tigers. And then to wrap things up on Sunday in Game 3, you have Perez stepping on for the White Sox, and Job is going to be stepping on for the Tigers. This is the home opener for the Tigers this year. Do the Tigers win their first series inside Comerica Park with the new branding, cough, cough, or do the White Sox come in and play spoiler?
No, the White Sox ain't spoiling nothing. I don't know if it'll be a sweep. I think it could be, but it's hard to say without knowing Friday's outcome. Of course, I anticipate Flaherty is going to pick up that W. Olsen is going to carry the weight here in just a little bit. For Game 2, Job is a little bit more of a unknown for me personally, but all that being said, I know that the Chicago White Sox stink. I know that the Detroit Tigers are much better than their record would indicate, and that is going to lead to a series win, just a win. I don't know about a sweep, a win for the Tigers.
Assuming I'm not making a fool out of myself based off of last night's results. So as long as last night was a win, I got a sweep as well. I just think that the Tigers are far better than the White Sox. I think that they've started this year far better than the White Sox. The bats are going. The pitching is much better than, what we had, previously. So I am in a position to think the Tigers will sweep the White Sox. So I'm taking them to win the series as well.
All right, let's get to the Pistons. They've got a handful of really important games here coming up, and not all of them easy, including the next one on the docket. That's the Memphis Grizzlies, who are 42-32, 20-18 on the road, as compared to the Pistons' 21-16 home record. This one taking place Little Caesars Arena tonight in the D, and the Grizzlies actually have a 65.5% chance of walking away with this one with a win. Pistons need some dubs to close out the season, DJ. Who do you got?
As much as I would love to pick our Pistons, I'm going to be realistic with this one. Isaiah Stewart is just coming back from his suspension. We don't know if Tobias Harris is going to play or not, and we absolutely have no idea about Cade Cunningham either. With those possible injuries and what they have on the opposite side with the Grizzlies, I'm going to play this one safe. Take the Grizzlies to win this game, although it's definitely burning a hole in my chest to say so.
Hey, do you know the last time the Grizzlies beat a playoff team?
It would be at least November 27th when they beat the Pistons by 20.
It was March 10th when they beat Phoenix. Phoenix is in the playoffs, right? I'm not crazy.
They should be.
Because if Phoenix isn't in the playoffs, then they haven't beaten a playoff team since 2024. Their resume is not impressive. Paper Tiger 42 and 45 and 32. Listen, regardless of all the circumstances that you just said, I understand all that. The Grizzlies are an impressive team, but they have gotten shellacked by playoff teams here recently. Golden State, Boston, Lakers, Thunder all took care of business here recently. I think the Pistons have an opportunity to show up and win a close one here over Memphis.
Healthy playoff teams is the big part.
True.
There. But I digress. I'm not, like I said, I hope the Pistons win this game, but kind of just going with some logic there. The next Pistons game on the docket, Monday night. Not Tuesday, Monday. Monday the 7th, 7 p.m., also at Little Caesars Arena. The Sacramento Kings coming in 17-21 on the road, 36-40 on the year. DeRozan, Sabonis, Zach LaVine, and company are coming to try and steal a game from the Pistons. Can they defend home court 2 games in a row in your case? Or will the Kings come in and steal a game in their hopes to push for the play-in on the west side?
I think this one will be a little bit more anxious for Pistons fans than they would like it to be. But I do think Detroit will stand their ground at home and get that 2-game winning streak that you mentioned.
I may have picked the Grizzlies to beat the Pistons, but the Kings ain't going to do it. I definitely have the Pistons winning this one. Would love to see them beat the Grizzlies. But I think Cade Cunningham is back by this game. And even if he's not, Tobias Harris and Isaiah Stewart are both back for this game. And the other pieces are there. The Pistons beat the Kings earlier this year by 1. So this is a chance for them to sweep this series. And I think they will. So I'll take the Pistons as well.
All right, let's head back to the Alamo Dome tonight, 6:09 p.m. on CBS. The Auburn Tigers are taking on the Florida Gators in the Final Four for the right to head to the national championship of the 2025 March Madness NCAA tournament. It's at the Alamo Dome, and both these teams can go. Florida averages 85.4 points per game. Auburn 83.2. Both these teams can score. Both these teams can play defense. They're great at everything. That's why they're the 1 seeds who made it to the Final Four. DJ, this one's going to be tight. It's going to be fun. Florida is a 2.5-point favorite, despite Auburn being the number 1 team in the country for most of the season, and Florida playing catch up. But they know how to take care of those elite SEC programs. Who do you got, Tigers or Gators?
All right, this one's tough for me, but I'm going to put it out there. It's hard to beat a team twice in a year. Auburn remembers Florida beating them. Auburn remembers losing to Tennessee in the SEC tournament, which gave Florida the chance to play Tennessee instead of Auburn for the SEC championship. Auburn wants to beat Florida. And I think Auburn has their eyes on a bigger prize with National Co-Coach of the Year Bruce Pearl leading things. I got Auburn going to the national championship game, Jacob.
It feels disgusting, especially when we made it 58 minutes without you saying Bruce Pearl's name.
My bad.
Because look, dude, I'm an Alabama fan. I don't like Bruce Pearl at all. I don't like the Auburn Tigers at all. They're a basketball school, and that's an insult in the state of Alabama. Damn it, they're good. They're really good. You don't stay on top all year like they did without being really good. And they have had higher aspirations than just winning the SEC tournament all year long. And I agree. You're going to remember having lost to Florida, and they are going to make Florida pay for it. Auburn is the more talented team. Florida's had a lot of grit. Fantastic season. Should be commended for years to come. But Auburn is going to win the basketball game and head to the national championship.
On the other side, we have 2 more 1 seeds. The Houston Cougars, 34-4, coming on in to the Alamo Dome to take on the Duke Blue Devils, 35-3. This is 8:49 p.m. on Saturday. 54% chance for Cooper Flagg, Con Knippel, and the rest of Duke to be victorious. LJ Cryer and Mr. Roberts of Houston have a 46% chance to upset. Who wins?
I always speak so highly of Houston. I really like Houston basketball. I like the way they get it done. But the way they get it done is not a recipe for success against Duke. I'm sorry to say it. Cooper Flagg and crew are going to handle business. You know what? I don't think they're going to have quite as easy of a time as they did against Alabama. I think Houston will put up much more of a fight, tighter game. 4.5 point favorites for Duke. They opened as 4.5 point favorites. They're now 5.5 point favorites. I'm not so sure that Duke covers that, but I do think they are going to win the basketball game.
Not too many teams that have a guy like Cooper Flagg lose games like this one. So I'm just going to lean on the side of caution and go with Duke because Duke has been one of the best teams in the country all year. I don't see that changing now. They actually had the least amount of losses in the Final Four, and I think that has to speak for something, and Duke goes on to win, which means we both take Duke, Auburn, Battlehawks, Tigers, and Pistons over the Kings. You got the Pistons over the Grizzlies, and I've got it the other way around. Get us into another awesome weekend.
And just for clarity, we both think Duke is going to win the national championship because this will be played before we come back. Yeah, shaking his head, yes. Yeah, I think we hinted at it enough, but yes, we both think Duke will win the Natty. But that's going to do it for us this weekend. We'll come back next week and continue the conversation. Plenty more to get into with the Tigers. We're getting closer to draft season. Talk more Detroit Lions as well. Plus, we'll be staring playoff basketball down the barrel as well. A whole lot to get into. Who cares if it's spring? There's still sports around the Mitten, and we're going to talk about them. We'll do it next week, 10 a.m. here on 95.3 WBCK. For Da'Jzon Hughes, I'm Jacob Harrison. See you next week. Take it easy.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by airwaycashforjunkcars.com.